Thank you, Marty. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for asking me to moderate. It's nice to see everybody. As Marty said, he and I go back a number of years. When I was over at Baker, I led our securities litigation and SEC practice for about 15 years, as well as then our hedge fund industry practice nationally, both. And I started my career at the SEC. What I've been doing in the last, first, we have a great panel. We have four great speakers. All have very different backgrounds, as you'll start hearing when I introduce each one of them, and have a different slant on things, some of which we'll talk about blockchain and that technology. This panel is Fintech, right? And Fintech effectively is financial technology. And basically, it's a way that businesses are now using means and different technology to improve the delivery of financial services. That's Fintech, right? And I know I'm talking to a sophisticated audience. I retired from my law firm last December after practicing law for 40 years, the last 20 both at Baker, Hostetler, and at Reed Smith. And now I get to do completely every day what I want to do. And that includes being an adjunct professor at Florida International University down here in Miami. I'm down here in Miami now. And I created for that school, its law school, a class which I call Blockchain, Crypto, and Regulatory Considerations. I want to say, and separately, I write a monthly column for Cointelegraph on musings that I have about the industry and the space. The one additional thing I'll just say at this point is that the last 4 years, starting in 2017, later than some, ahead of many, I started getting involved with blockchain. I had actually done a program for it as part of my hedge fund industry practice back in 14 around the time of Mt. Gox. But then I kind of fell away from it, didn't spend much time in it. But then I got back in 17 and starting in 17, I both invested in the space, which I have been doing consistently throughout till today. And I've also been advising clients, mostly with respect to US regulations and the like. So that's part of, Fintech is morphing a little bit in terms of, blockchain is, as Anthony Entman said, it's like the internet. And it's a technology. And so what I actually like to say is that what the internet did for communications, blockchain is doing for transactions and data transmission. And if you look at it like that, you no longer say, oh, this is bunk, this is crap. What are people doing here? And if you just look at this technology, you gain to appreciate it. So I think, several of the panelists will have some more to say about it. I'm going to actually start with Gary Palmer as our first presenter. He's got some very interesting experience over the years. He's obviously been wildly successful in some of the work he's done and well respected. He co-founded Wildcard Systems in 1997, and he's actually credited as being the inventor of a prepaid Visa and MasterCards. IvyFON acquired Wildcard in 2005 for $262 million. And at IvyFON, Gary worked for the chairman and sold IvyFON a couple of years later for $1.8 billion. I'm assuming he kept some of that money. So more recently, I hope so, right? More recently, it hasn't put it, I hope you didn't put 98% of it into Bitcoin, Gary, okay? Anyway, more recently, MasterCard acquired a company called Gary also co-founded, and this became MasterCard Send. And he's also been an industry advisor to the Philadelphia Fed since 2005. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Gary, please. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Marty. You've got a great panel. Thanks for the introduction. The panel is largely those that are making investments. I'm an operator, so I'm in a little different category. And what I'm doing now, the fact is I'm the bank nerd, I'm the payment nerd, I'm the guy that is the most boring guy at a cocktail party, but I love innovating payments. And what I've done for 20 years is helped banks deliver new payment products. So as I say, our first company was considered the inventor of Visa, MasterCard prepaid cards. By the time we sold the company in 2005, 8 of the 10 largest US banks were our customers, from Bank of America, Wells Fargo, US Bank, on and on. And in fact, Bank of America was an investor. The first Visa cards ever issued in China weren't Visa cards that were debit or credit, they were Visa prepaid cards on my platform. And we powered not only these galactic banks and provided the technology for their prepaid cards, we provided the services related to fraud and risk, compliance, and customer service. All of that's important because of what we're doing now. And this is a very big idea, and I couldn't do it alone. I'll mention briefly the team in a second, but we're focused on fixing the problem of cross-border payments through banks. There are a lot of guys in the cross-border payment space, but most of them are trying to kill banks or marginalize banks. We're building off of my 20 years of building software for banks to enable banks to offer better cross-border payments. We solve a fundamental risk problem in a unique way, which is identifying who owns a business, how do they make money, and why are they making a payment. And we solve on the other side of the transaction or the trade, who are they paying and why are they paying them, and making sure these two things connect. In terms of the payment themselves, we have pioneered a concept, what's called a global single shared platform. It's modeled after the Federal Reserve banks in the US. It's called FedWire. And in Europe, it's called Target 2 as a part of ECB. And we've merged this concept of their single shared platforms with what I created in my first company, which is a global single shared platform where all of the participants that are making and receiving payments have transaction accounts on our system, and we are the subcontractor for the bank. So consumers and users would never know this. We are inside that. The outcome is that we can, and by the way, the IMF and the United Nations has reported that up to 5% of the global GDP is money laundered through banks.
So let me ask you a question, Gary. Okay.
What's that?
So let me ask you a question. So you say that part of it is you're working with the FedWire service. Can you explain that and the difference between that and like SWIFT? And then, the system, like, which is mostly, I thought, currency exchange related. And then also talk a little bit, if you would, how this is different than something that's in the blockchain space that I'm aware of and others are. I mean, here, Ripple, for example, right? They, as I understand it, have a cross-border payments process as well, but using blockchain. And where do you see those ultimately coexisting, and where do you see those going?
So our platform is modeled after the FedWire and ECB in terms of the architecture. In terms of SWIFT, it's a messaging protocol between about 10 or 11,000 banks. The foundation for SWIFT and the current way in which payments are moved globally, it's based on correspondent banks and what are called nostro vostro accounts. Our technology fundamentally eliminates the need for those complex nostro vostro accounts, and we can operate independently of SWIFT. And that's important for the 100,000 plus small banks and medium-sized banks that aren't on SWIFT globally. Only a very small number of banks are on SWIFT. And so what we do is we open up the business to the cross-border payment business to 10,000 plus or minus smaller, medium-sized banks in the US that need to make cross-border payments. And more importantly, we open up to 1,000 or plus foreign banks that can't make payments into the US because no US bank will provide correspondent banking. And we do that because we fundamentally solve a risk problem by answering the question, who owns the business, how do they make money, and why do they make payments? These questions aren't answered by SWIFT. SWIFT is a messaging protocol. These questions aren't answered by Ripple or any of the other systems that are out there. So we have a data warehousing construct and a data processing mechanism that allows us to gather this data, analyze it, and to ensure the integrity of a payment, which again, it's not really what Ripple does or SWIFT does. SWIFT is involved in messaging. Ripple is involved in moving the funds using blockchain. We've chosen not to use blockchain, although we intersect with blockchain use cases and commercial applications. And we're very focused on technology. I would love to use blockchain if it added value, if it was more cost effective, and if it was faster. But in our use case, it's not. The global single shared platform where we're managing it the way we are is more efficient.
Interesting. The only difference is, though, well, I guess they're both permissioned anyway, right? Blockchains, even if it's whether it's yours effectively, right? It's a closed system, as well as in the blockchain space, it's similarly closed, I guess. So excellent. Please continue. Go ahead.
So that's our business. We started a couple of years ago. We are rapidly growing. We've got just under $1 million in revenue last year. We'll do between 5 and 15 million this year. And the reason we can do it, as I say, I've been in the payments business a long time, but I've really attracted some of my old colleagues from the past. For example, many of you in the US have heard of a system called Zelle, powered by a processor called Early Warning Systems. The CTO of Early Warnings for 10 years, who designed and built Zelle, is now with my company. The chief architect of Zelle is my chief architect. And one of the leading fintech banks in the US is called MetaBank. And their chief operating officer for the last 3 years has joined me as my COO. And she actually joined me at my first company in 1998. The point is, we got a lot of really smart people that have known payments, that have led innovations for 20 years. And so while we're embarked on a very big idea, which is changing the way banks facilitate cross-border payments to make them safer and more efficient, we've got the horsepower in terms of management and the experience to do it.
And so at this point in time, who owns the business, and what are your plans in terms of growth? And, you know, have you brought other investors in? Just at a high level, if you don't mind saying something about that.
Great. At a high level, the company was, the angel investors, the seed capital came from me, a former Visa International board member, which is a great credentialing, and a family office out of Connecticut that's put in a substantial amount of capital. So the three of us are the seed investors. But we were just finishing a safe round now, and it's really the who's who of American banks. We've got one of the leading B2B American processors, a publicly traded US bank, former CFO of Card Connect, former executive chairman of FIS. Our safe investors are sophisticated investors who know payments, banking, compliance, and they've really gotten excited and energized by our incredibly different approach to fixing cross-border payments.
Interesting. Okay. Well, listen, if you would throw on your email address, and like if people want to follow up with you about any aspects of your business and the like, sure, I think that would be fantastic. Does anyone have a question at this point? Before I turn it over to Sandra and introduce her, I wanted to see if there was a question that someone may have had for Gary. Okay, so Gary put it up there. It's Gary.Palmer at Payall, PAYALLPS.com.
Thanks.
What's your phone? Thanks, what's your phone number, Gary?
+1 954 478 9616. I'll put that in there too.
Fantastic. Thanks a lot. All right. Maybe people have questions coming back to you in a moment. So at this point, thank you for that. Let me go to Sandra Familet Lufkin. I don't know if I asked you, Sandra, but whether or not you were related to the Lufkin-Jenrette clan or not.
Yes, I actually married the nephew. So Chauncey Lufkin III, his uncle is Dan Lufkin of
okay.
LJ.
Got it. Okay, so but Sandra, in her own right, has experience spanning over 2 decades, including working with the top decile private equity and venture managers, playing a pivotal role in BlackRock's massive growth and from its inception to post-IPO. And she is one of the first female executives on the equity, fixed income, commodity, and Forex trading floors of major exchanges such as Merrill Lynch and Goldman. She has an amazingly diverse skill set and has a perfect background to found a market intelligence firm, which she has done with her husband, and build her own family office in the last 10 years. So as co-CEO with her husband, what's his name, by the way? First name?
Chauncey Forbes Lufkin III.
Oh my God, I'm glad. Now I know why you don't mention it in your.
I don't.
Okay.
But
Chauncey, okay, you and Chauncey.
Our family office is CFL, his initial CFL, and then the number.
Got it. No, it's a great name.
It's memorable.
Can we just refer to him as Third, please?
Okay.
Yeah, let's just do that.
Well, the third. That's what we'll do.
It was hard. It was hard growing up, being a little boy with that name. Let me tell you.
I bet. I only know one other Chauncey, and I think you're right. He wasn't a newscaster on Sunday morning or something like that. Anyway, apart from authors. Anyway, so as co-CIO with her husband, Sean the third, she's been investing in numerous venture capitals funds, as well as providing seed capital for early stage companies, either in both in blockchain and in fintech and enterprise SaaS and AI. And in addition, she's become a venture partner at HUT, HUTT Capital, which is a blockchain venture capital fund of funds and direct investment fund that provides exposure to the top blockchain and crypto startups globally via a single commitment. And to follow up on what Sandra had said in terms of her own personal philanthropy, she has a family foundation, which is a charitable organization dedicated to improving quality of life with a special focus on education and healthcare. And she serves on several advisory boards, is a frequent speaker at family office conferences. She's an associate with the Millikan Foundation, Faster Cures, a fellow of the Aspen Institute, and one of the earliest supporters of Robin Hood Foundation and TED. So it's really great. I got to know her from our prep sessions, like I did the rest of the panelists. It's great to have Sandra speak to us and give her some of her insights in this space. I turn it over to you, please.
Thank you, Marc. So I want to thank Marc and Marty for having me. Really appreciate it. So we are a single family office based in Florida. We are often in New York though, and San Francisco. So what I thought was the best thing for me to do was kind of just like the evolution of what we've invested in and what we like today. So what was really great, and not all families actually have this background, and I really understand that, but I've been a venture girl for 30 years. My husband, when I met him, he was the #1 CLO hedge fund manager, but so he has that hedge fund mentality. So we actually manage our own assets versus having a very big staff. Not all families actually have that, they built their businesses with a particular company. So I truly understand that. So we were able to be very nimble, opportunistic. I think that's what you would call our style. Over the years, we have done a lot in enterprise SaaS and have done quite well. We actually were anchor investors in first-time venture funds, really seeding the managers that we really thought had the greatest potential. And I have to say, all of them have worked out. One of the first ones that we seeded have 7 unicorns in their first fund. So I think that we're very good at actually selecting very good managers. We've also done some stuff on the InsurTech space. When people say Fintech, I think that people should look at InsurTech. Things are changing as far as insurance. Like when you want to have insurance for your home or the contents of your home now, you don't need to have an inspector come to your home. You can actually just pull up your phone and walk around. So COVID-19 has really catapulted, I believe, the InsurTech industry, and I believe that is worth a look.
So let me ask you, Sandra, give us some of the names that you had invested in through these funds, either in the insurance tech or in the SaaS areas.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. So for InsurTech, Flyreel, and the VC manager that we invested in was Interatlantic. Interatlantic is actually the longest and largest of the InsurTech managers. The fund that I had mentioned about enterprise SaaS, that was Lumia Capital. So we had exposure to MuleSoft, Cabbage, a full array of amazing enterprise SaaS in that regard. But you know what? A lot of my husband had grown up with some of the VCs in blockchain, so we really started to dabble in that I would say 2017. And so we really started to look. So what I wanted to do was actually share with the families, because a lot of families now, and I want to, any family that actually really wants to hear the whole journey, I'm actually happy to share, but a quick synopsis. So when we want to invest in the space, we really believe in due diligence. So we really did it. So we had access to Cambridge Associates. There were two young guys there that are no longer at the firm. They actually are at blockchain or crypto related situations. But we spoke to many people, and all of them actually said the exact same thing to us. And they had said, the most important thing to remember in this space, and I'm not one to actually, tout this, you have to decide for yourself whether you want to be in blockchain and crypto. But when you make that decision, here's what they said to us. They said, the most important thing is this is such a fast moving sector. And you can get whipsawed. You saw how, Bitcoin can go up and down, and so you can really get whipsawed. So, but you also have to remember that I think that we see a lot of great adoption. So this really is the future. And so therefore, if you're not in it, you're taking more of a risk than being in it. So because the downside is you're really missing on these amazing opportunities. And I truly believe in that. So we started to invest about 25% of our assets back then, and through appreciation and through further investment, now we're at 75%. So I know we are a very unusual family office, but we take a different approach. So my husband, because he's a hedge fund guy, what we decided to do was, a lot of people said, if you want exposure to crypto, you can certainly hire a manager, but there are some major coins out there that you can actually just get access by yourself. And that was absolutely true. Some people don't want to open a wallet. We, and I think many of you are institutional. We actually stumbled upon Tagomi that was bought by Coinbase. And that was the trading platform that really was a game changer for us. So we were really able to nimbly get exposure to the top coins and tokens. That was a game changer, I have to say. As far as venture, as you know, I'm a venture girl, and we really believed in venture, and we have invested in some of the very, very top managers. But as one of the hedge fund guys that was in the crypto space had said, there were a lot of funds out there that are no longer here. And so what is a family to do? Sometimes you don't have the staff to do due diligence. So I was never a big believer in fund of funds, because you do have the fees on top of fees. However, in this sector, I actually believe that that is a very good strategy. Why is that? Because some of the funds that we were looking at, they were so they were some of the very, very best, but you get oversubscribed really quickly now, and they're closed out. So every time that you look, you're closed out of the fund. So I stumbled upon Hut Capital. Hut Capital is a venture blockchain fund of funds. They also do direct investments. Why do I like them? And I don't get paid to raise money for them. But why do I like them? If you invest in one manager, as you you really have selection risk. You don't know if that manager is going to be around. Now, you certainly have many big managers out there where you certainly have a comfort level. However, a lot of families want diversification. So how do you actually select the best? So if you want diversification and you don't want very high volatility, you want exposure to different types of strategies, different types of geographies. You don't want the dependence on the token prices, because you can have that in your hedge fund managers. And the overall risk is low. I actually think that Hut Capital is one of the best blockchain venture fund of funds out there. I think that the Stevens, you had mentioned that Marty had mentioned that the Stevens brothers, Bart Stevens, is actually an advisor to the founder of Hut Capital. We ourselves are going to be investing in Hut Capital. I'm talking to you about this, but prior to my investment, but having looked at their lineup, they've invested in 4 managers to date, and all of them are closed, oversubscribed. So, and they've done some amazing direct investments.
Hey, Sandra, can I just jump in here for 1 second quickly? Yeah. So you're 3/4 crypto.
Yeah.
Do you find that your ability to diversify out of crypto is hindered because it's growing so fast? Or are you actively looking to diversify out of crypto?
So our other 25%, so we do have a high risk tolerance for a family office, just given our backgrounds. Our other 25%, what we do is we invest in a lot of last money in, so that means last mile in. So we invest in a lot of SPVs, especially in the healthcare and technology space. Where it might be the Series B or Series C round, and that is, you know, probably the last capital in prior to exit or IPO. So in that particular situation, the return that we look for in that segment of what we do is about a 6 to 8x return in 2 to 4 years.
Okay. And then my only comment on like the Hut Capitals of the world and the, you know, venture capital,
yeah,
blockchain fund that you're investing in. Again, I know Bart and Brad for almost 10 years now, right? Stevens. But my question about investing in that area is that historically the biggest returns have been in the assets and not in the projects. But you have a special interest because of the operator. You feel comfortable with the way they with the, you know, the new projects, the way these venture firms operate in the space that they're in. You feel like InsurTech's got a lot of, you know, runway, you know, for, you know, expansion. There's a lot of, you know, old players in the space, and there's a lot of tech innovation. And do you feel that way about other areas in finance as well? Maybe since you come from the hedge fund background, et cetera, maybe you can discuss a little bit.
Yeah, sure. Well, I do feel that, you know, you have to remember that the future is the millennials and the Gen Zs. And so they're biggest adopters of technology. And so, you know, as far as InsurTech and health tech, that's the way they're going to want to buy their insurance. That's the way they want to have coverage of the contents of their home. They'll want to take a picture of an accident that they have in their car and actually just send it to their insurance company. As far as blockchain, what we wanted was really big diversification, you know, whether it was in the DeFi space. For example, one of the funds that Hut Capital, Brooke Pollock, who's the founder, had invested in one of the spinouts of A16Z, and A16Z seeded the spinout. So what I really liked is we wanted exposure to some of the very, you know, well-known names in the blockchain space, but some of the emerging managers, especially in the DeFi space, you know, are the ones to really be investing in. So we wanted exposure to different size managers and the different geographies, different strategies. So that was really great. And we also get co-investment opportunities. I think it's really nice to have the catbird seat for somebody to be looking down and actually interviewing all the managers and then investing in them and seeing what really works.
Well, I think the assumption is that if you're spinning out from A16Z, that you've got all the next level capital that you need. You know, so if you're going in at the seed level or Series A, A16Z can step in at, you know, Series B, Series C, et cetera.
Absolutely.
So, and with their imprimatur, you know, you're likely they're going to be successful, right?
Yes, because you actually have big backers behind you. It really does help. You're absolutely right, Marty.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that. So that's the path that you chose. It makes sense. Great.
So Sandra, let me just follow up with one or two things. So you have, in the blockchain space, which I find very interesting is that a year or two ago or three, people would always say, how could you invest in cryptocurrencies? you don't have any rights. You don't have, where if you own, where if you're a shareholder of a company, you have rights as a, shareholder to vote, you have dividend rights and other contractual rights. And all you have with cryptos when you buy them is you believe in a startup effectively, and you have inchoate rights that you hope that, whatever they use either in their ecosystem or otherwise, there's a value that ultimately gets attached to it. So I find it so interesting that argument is complete. No one's worrying about that anymore.
I know.
So, I sat at a panel 3 years ago. In fact, it was a Marty panel 2 years ago back in Miami. Next to me was a guy who used to be a young kid that was at Goldman that was then on the West Coast. And I kind of threw that question at him. I go, what about that? Oh, we would never touch anything that's just a crypto because it's like, forget it, we have no rights. I guess, but I find that interesting. But the question I have for you is, you diversify obviously in the space.
Yes.
What do you say about the idea of just investing directly in a cryptocurrency, which doesn't have any legal rights, as opposed to buying into these blockchain businesses? And a second question I do want to ask you is, I'm kind of curious about the DeFi space because Coinbase is frankly a little bit more at this point a traditional exchange. And DeFi stands for a decentralized finance and decentralized exchanges like Uniswap and all these other ones. I actually think that Coinbase has a limited, shelf life in the same sense that banks to some degree do. So I'd like you to comment on whatever you choose to about that.
Sure. Okay. So as far as a family office, I do the venture side. My husband does the crypto side. What he really actually does is he will look at the different coins and tokens, and some of them are just fluff. So you really have to do your due diligence, and you have to say, does this really make sense? And so he really is listening to many different people out there that he really respects. Olaf of Polychain had created a token. So he follows different people that he really respects because he's trading our own, a lot of our money is just in that space, and he's trading in and out of things. I wouldn't recommend that for all families because you know what, it really is just like the other presenter said, it's 24/7. It never closes. I am a blockchain widow. My husband is out chasing coins. Anyway, so, as far as the DeFi space, I don't really want to mention Coinbase so much, but some of the other exchanges out there, it's actually, it's not fiat currency. It is crypto to crypto. And so, you can, it's a lot more nimble, a lot quicker to open your accounts. But you're going to just be seeing in that whole DeFi space it is a very growing area. It is one of great interest for us. The fund that we had looked at was Variant, that was a spin out of A16. And so we're getting exposure through Hut Capital in regards to that. And there's another very young manager that is hitting out of the ballpark. But people really like control of their own money. And so to be able to open accounts a lot more quickly, is a very good thing.
Okay, so is there anything you want to say in finishing up on your presentation, or does anyone have any questions, other questions for Sandra from the audience, the participants, or the panelists? If anyone comments on any aspects of what Sandra said?
What I'll do, I'll just put, so I'll give you my, because I am a venture partner, so I'll just do, so I will just give you my information and my phone number, should anyone want to contact me, and or also speak with my husband, who really handles the crypto side of things.
Right. The third.
There we go. The third.
Right.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. I'm now gonna. That was fantastic. I'm gonna now turn it over to Mauro. His name is Mauro Andriotto, and we're very pleased to have him as a fellow panelist. He's a founder and chairman of Andriotto Financial Services, which is a financial boutique specialized in crypto finance. And he's also the founder and chairman of EDSX, which is a European Digital Assets Exchange. And that exchange is the first platform in Europe recognized as one of the, for issuing and trading digital assets. And Mauro is also internationally recognized as one of the leaders in the STO and digital IPO space. He's also a professor of corporate finance and enterprise risk management at SDN Bocconi University of Pisa and at University of Geneva UBIS. He's an advisor to the Europe. It's amazing. These credentials are fantastic, right? He's an advisor at the European Commission for the European Institute of Innovation and Technology, and a jury member of the European Innovation Council. You're going to tell me what a jury member does, Mauro. Okay, it's one of the first things you're going to do for us, please. Where you approve grants and equity investments from the European Investment Fund up to 20 million euro for innovation and disruptive projects. And he's a former quant guy over at EY for the South Europe, and currently is an equity partner at SMC, which is a Swiss family office, which has 15 locations around the world. So anyway, with that, Mauro, I know you'll get embarrassed if I keep going on about various things that you've done. So I'm going to turn it over to you. And your background is extremely impressive, and I look forward to hearing what you have to say to everyone.
Thank you very much, Marc. It's a pleasure to be here today. And I will answer first about what a jury member does for the European Commission. So I helped the European Commission to select the project that will be financed inside the new Horizon Europe program, that is a 95 billion program created by the European Commission for financing innovation. Actually is open to any projects around the world. So if you have a project outside Europe, I'm inviting you to propose your innovation to the European Union. And if they believe it's an interesting one, you can get up to 17.5 millions, of which 2.5 millions as a non-refundable, non-repayable grant. The other 15 millions as an equity investment from the European Investment Fund. But today I'm here to speak about the European Digital Asset Exchange. This is actually the first platform, is a decentralized platform built on Ethereum. Is the first platform that is able to trade in a primary and secondary market security tokens. So here we are focused on equity, bonds, and other equity instrument or any other financial instruments and security. The secondary market is still not open, even if we are completely in compliance both with the Swiss laws and European laws. We are completing our proof of concept, that is a company where we have been able to digitize the shares. It means that we have been the first in Switzerland and in Europe, and you can find some info on Google. If you Google over future and the Eurodax, that was the previous name of the platform, you will see that we have been the first to be able to register with the Swiss authority an articles of incorporation of a company that is natively on the blockchain. It means that on the articles of incorporation of the company is written that the shares are represented by tokens that are on the Ethereum blockchain, and that the shareholder registry actually is kept on the blockchain. And this clearly means it has a lot of advantage, because it means that when you transfer the token on the blockchain to another wallet address, the other wallet address will be the new owner of that share. So with that token, he can vote and exercise his shareholder rights. I mean, how does it work? We have actually another possibility for issuer. That is, we can create a fiduciary contract. So let's say that you have a fund or you have any other asset, you have a share from another country or any other asset. We can also create a Swiss fiduciary contract with EDSX, where you will deposit the asset in EDSX or at the family office, and we will digitize that asset. So we will give you a digitization actually of the fiduciary contract that can be traded on the primary and secondary market. For an investor, using the platform is very straightforward. As I said, we are decentralized because the wallets are kept outside of the platform. This also for security reason. So we use cold wallets and we take care of KYC and everything else. So they just need to register a wallet. Then at that point, an investor is enabled to use both the primary and secondary market. We believe.
Let me ask you something, Mauro,
yeah, sure.
if I may. Excuse me. How large is the platform? How many STOs or tokens or other products are on the platform? What's its volume and interest? And also, I would be curious about whether or not a U.S. company can list on EDSX.
Yeah, sure. So the platform is a new one. It took really a lot of time to let's say to get in compliance with the Swiss law. So we have just received our authorization recently, and we have started the beginning of 2020. That was not the best year to start, also because 2 of the 5 contracts that we have signed are in the tourism hospitality sector, and so they have been signed at the beginning of 2020. But I have to say that we have concluded our proof of concept. That is, this company is called Over Future. We have raised 500K for this company through selling tokens, and they have not launched the public campaign. It means that the tokens have been sold to institutional investors. 300 have been raised that are already raised through the platform, and other 200 have been committed by an institutional investor here in the south of Switzerland. We have 3 main targets in Europe. One is the small medium enterprise market, because historically in Europe is the sector and the segment that has the biggest difficulties in getting the access to the capital market, and they have a lot of issues in getting funding from the banking sector. So we really believe that they need new instruments for raising money. The second segment is about illiquid assets or alternative investment. So we are already speaking with some funds that are looking for having a direct access to the cryptocurrency market. And we believe that digitizing the shares of that funds or the assets of that funds will give them a direct access to the cryptocurrency market. And the third target is the crowdfunding market. We want to offer a secondary market to the equity crowdfunding that at the moment is missing it. There are a lot of companies with a lot of innovation and interesting projects that did the crowdfunding campaign, and at the moment the investors have illiquid shares of company that can be liquidated just when there will be an IPO or a private equity fund. So this is something that we want to do. We want to offer them the secondary market on the blockchain to give them also the possibility to raise additional capital through a security token offering.
Is that open to the U.S. investors though, right? I mean, secondary trading is always problematic here for any U.S. investors or here in the States. Because,
yes.
Right. So who are these open to? And if a U.S. company did have an interest in selling its tokens abroad, how would it go about doing it with you and your exchange?
Yeah, it's absolutely, it is open. It can be done also with a fiduciary contract. The only thing that must be remembered is that technology is neutral to legislation. It means that for a European companies, in order to offer a share of a European company in US, I need to follow the security law of the SEC. So I need to do a regulation depending on which type of investor. It doesn't matter if it's a token or a share. And the same thing is for Europe. So for example, in Europe, if you go above 8 million, so you need to deposit a prospectus that is similar to the registration that you need to do with the SEC. The fact that we are speaking about a digital token, it doesn't make any change. So yes, the platform is open, but clearly we need to follow and to be in compliance with the law that is a traditional law for offering securities to the public.
And the current owners, you said there was you were doing like a raise and a round, and there had been an issuance of about 500,000 tokens. That I wasn't clear. Was that for your exchange, or was that for an issuer that was on your exchange?
No, it's through an issuer that made a primary offering on the exchange, and the money has been raised by high net worth individual and a family office.
And in terms of the funding of the exchange and how big it is to make sure that it's still there in 2 years' time, let's say, how do people know that it's there, and are you doing any capital raising efforts for the exchange as well?
Well, at the moment we have 5,000 people that are registered. I think more for curiosity, but we think that we can populate the exchange very quickly, also because the exchange for an issuer is almost completely free. So our profit is just based on success fee. And we think that there are a lot of people out there interested in having a secondary market for the shares. Just let's think, for example, at a crowdfunding campaign when they have 300 or 500 investors and they need to pay the dividends to all these people. They need to hire an agency just for the payments. We can solve this with a smart contract, and we can also solve all the shareholder meetings with all these people through the blockchain, giving them the vote with the token and identifying them with the wallet. So yes, we are growing, I have to say, very, very fast, and we have in plan of launching other 2 projects that are already listed on the platform. One is a UK bond by Prime Nordic, and the other one is a mining company in Georgia that is a big Italian group that made an investment there and is looking for creating a mining operation in that country. Then we have other 2 really big projects. One is with the chain Six Senses. It's the digitization of a resort in Brazil. And the other one is with one of the most important real estate developer in Italy that is looking to digitize an hotel in Russia. The name of the family is the Preatoni family. But as I said, these last 2 projects are about hospitality, so they are on hold because clearly of the moment that we are living in.
Thank you, Mauro. That's fantastic. Would you mind providing your contact information on the chat as well? But
absolutely.
Orally state them as well first, if you would.
Sure. Thank you.
No, what's your email address? Just state it, if you would.
Yeah, my email is Mauro, Muro.Andriotto, ANDRIOTTO @andriotto.com. But I will write everything also here in the chat.